would actually meet every day. We found that that would require more ELA and math teachers, but it also would not meet all of our guiding principles of having all the core subjects every day. And then we looked at a 6-period rotation where those classes would be about 60 minutes. It would allow for cores to meet every day, but then it would cut down the amount of electives that are offered for our students. And so some of the things that BSD is well known for, we wouldn't be able to do all of those things anymore. So when we started looking at these schedules, we went back to a 7-period day and what that might look like. And we knew that we wanted to have about 60-minute classes. So we looked at the 7-period drop 1 rotation. This would give us an increased amount of exploratories and related arts classes that our kids could have. It would also help have core classes every single day. And it would allow us to still have our planning time, our, professional learning PLCs, and a lot of the guiding principles that we said were very, very important. And the first one that we looked at, we didn't really embed SEL into it. But we had to start somewhere. So we looked at these 3 different options. When we started diving into the 7-period drop 1, we then started talking about how would that rotation look, because we are going to drop 1 period every day. So we talked about, okay, well, we can do a forward rotation or we could do a reverse rotation, meaning we can have, a 1 day, a 2 day, a 3 day, a 4 day, or we could go backwards and have 1 day, a 7 day, 6 day, or 5 day. So what we decided, we looked at as a team is what were the pros and cons. So when we drop, like if you look at Monday, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you actually drop your period 7 class. But then on Tuesday, we would start with period 7. That would actually help the kids remember what day it's going to be, because that is the class that they didn't see the day before. So the good thing is that it will help students kind of know what's coming next, because that's the class they dropped. On the teacher side of it, if we taught 6 periods of 1 lesson, you would finish off that lesson with your period 7 class that you dropped the day before, and then you would start your new lessons. Now that's kind of simplifying it, but that's really, what would happen. Well, what we would try to happen. So if you had a lab you were doing the first 6 periods, you would continue with that lab period 7, and then you would switch over. So the rotating schedule was very important, and we felt like the backwards rotation would actually help both the students and the teachers. We also looked at a time comparison because, again, we want more instruction. So when you look at the time comparison on the board, we have just about 170 days a year, about 85 days a semester. We took into account that if you're dropping a period every 7 days, you would drop 24 classes a year. But if you look at the time overall, a full block for a full year course is about 120 hours. Well, a full year course, if you drop 1 period every 7 days, is about 133 hours. That's a big difference when you're talking about content and having students in front of you. So we did look at the time comparison to make sure that what we were doing actually was adding more time like we thought. Most curricula are built to actually fit into a 60-minute class. So your math lessons, ELA, science, looking at new curriculum, all of those actually fit into the 45 to 60-minute window. So it would be easier to actually plan those types of classes versus trying to fit your plans into an every other day block. So if we had about an 85-minute class, some people would say, well, you could do 2 lessons a day. Well, that doesn't really work out all that great if you're trying to teach content. Like I wouldn't want to teach 2 math lessons in a day of 2 totally different skills, because the kids didn't really have time to learn the first skill. So with our curricula, it actually fits better into a 60-minute class than what we have right now. Students will be able to have their classes every day. So again, it's just the consistency. You have math every day, you have ELA every day. You're seeing the content more often than what they're doing now, which will help with their retention of material over time. Okay. So after looking at all of that, we have our schedule. It's in front of you right now. This schedule has 55-minute classes, except for the lunch. The lunch class is a little bit closer to 60. And we also were able to build in SEL because we knew that was very important. So we were able to build that in over the lunch period. We thought that was a great time to have it built in so we could work around, you know, whether you have A lunch or B lunch, maybe you want to do something special with those kids or you want to take them outside. We had that built in around the lunch period, and we all kind of agreed that that was a good time to have the extra minutes. So as you see, the SEL is going to be embedded within that class period. And again, it depends on which lunch you have, when it will be. It's flexible. The other classes will be 55 minutes. This leads us to, I mean, we've checked everything. So we looked at the contract. We have our 15 minutes before class, 15 minutes after. We also made sure that we have at least the 225 minutes of planning that teachers need in a day. We have time in there for partner planning, PLCs. And what's nice about the lunch period is we built in 10 minutes in between lunches. So like for my school at PS, pretty big school, we have a lot of kids transitioning at the same time. It actually works out really well because a group leaves lunch, they get to class, and then the other group comes down. It actually is good for cleaning as well. We all know that it would be nice to have a clean environment before you go and eat when somebody else just got done eating. So that builds in time to actually clean the cafeteria before more kids come in. So making sure that that fit everybody's needs. It looked at, you know, all of our guiding principles. We hit most of them. We didn't have to change any staff because some of those schedules, there would have to be a change of staff. So we didn't have to do that. We made sure that we talked to the schools. The schools were able to run this schedule with the staffing that they have. Me personally, I've been here 24 years in this district. I'm excited to see my kids every day versus every other day. Building relationships is important. It's really hard to do that when you're seeing them every other day. And then that every other day turns into like 3 or 4 or 5 days, depending on the weekend. It will allow us to have better relationships, and the kids will hopefully retain much more seeing the content every day.
Okay, so just highlight a few next steps. Obviously involves communication and planning. We would obviously need to share with staff more globally that we are, going to make this shift, as well as provide communication to families through building meetings and or maybe creating informational videos that parents would kind of access, and students really at any point in time. We would need to work with our technology department to make sure that the system that we use for scheduling is updated accurately. And as I mentioned, our curriculum and instruction department will continue their work in looking at our scope and sequence of the curriculum materials. So that concludes the presentation that we have for you. I will open it up to any questions that you may have.
Not so much a question, but just a big thank you. This is, the older I get, the more I tell my kids, back when I was your age. And while the 7-period schedule is something that's familiar to me, and prior to my time on the board, the idea of the block schedule, I never fully understood. I know there were studies at the time and the benefits of having the extended time and hands-on learning. But this 7-period plan really touches on a lot of things that I think are important, from having your core subjects every day, obviously adding more instruction time throughout the full year. That is something that we've desperately needed, and seen how that affects over the course of this pandemic. So thank you for this plan and the time and energy you put into it, and I'm excited for it.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the committee. They stuck with me.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to the committee. Especially, I think it was great that you had all different types of leaders on the team, which I think is excellent. I think I touched briefly on this, possibly, Corey, with you in the past, but there is some research too about starting school days later and the benefits that students have. And I think at the time we knew there was some obstacles, like the buses and all the different kids that need to get to school at around the same time. But I didn't know if that could be something with the new schedule that could be incorporated to have the start times, especially for high school and middle school. just because they have so much less sleep. And there's so many studies that show that they actually do better on testing and things like that if they can get extra sleep.
So that wasn't something that we looked at all. We kind of worked within the parameters of the current school day and hours. I guess that's something that we could talk about as a leadership team to see if we wanted to explore those, that as an option.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Scott, I have a question about, I love this plan. I love the going back to the 7 class periods a day. I think it makes sense. And thank you to everybody, like Mr. Scarbot said, for putting in the time to do this. I would also ask if the consideration has been made for high school.
We have not looked at high school or talked about high school. Our priority was tackling the middle school schedule at this point. Again, I think it's something that we could certainly talk about if that's appropriate, and do our due diligence around that if that's what the executive team deems appropriate.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage the superintendent and the admin team to look at the high school options for a later presentation for that information from the high school level.
Okay.
I definitely agree with President Scurvat and Vice President Vision that the high schools need to be addressed as well.
Okay.
We are happy to look into that. I am thoroughly amazed that Ms. Scott and Ms. Spada and Ms. Fitzhugh were able to pull this off this year. This is a huge undertaking, and it will be as monumental to take a look at that high school schedule. So I am pretty comfortable saying that there won't be, I don't see a change between now and the beginning of the school year for high school. It will take as much work, and Cora's been working on this for 6 months or so, if not more, along with Lindsay and Sabrina. So to do justice to a review of the high school schedule and options, it will take us several months, but we will put it on our to-do list.
I think, one of the things that always frustrates me being on a board is we have kids going through the system now who are being hurt by the current schedule. I've never been a big fan of block scheduling. I understood the reasons why we went that direction, but I think we really need to think about, we're talking about Learning Leap, and we're going to hear part 3 of 4 in a minute, which is the catch-up idea. But I think if we go into next year with the same schedule in high school, then we're doing those kids a disservice. And we really should look at accelerating this. I mean, really, does the wheel need to be reinvented for high school? That similar concepts. I don't see why the same 7-period rotating schedule wouldn't work in high school. I really don't. It worked before. We've had it before. Why wouldn't it work now? And every year you put that off, you're taking away from those kids who are in school at this time. So I just, it's one of the frustrating things. I know you don't turn the Queen Mary on a dime. You start turning the wheel of the boat slowly, starts to turn it. Eventually we get there. But in the meantime, passengers are falling off and drowning because we're not moving fast enough. So I would encourage a sense of urgency, not reinventing the wheel. Let's bring some high school teachers in. Let's get them talking about this. I can't believe if we didn't sit down with some high school teachers right now, they wouldn't tell us that the current system is just not working real well. And it hasn't for several years. And every year that we put it off is one more group of students who does not get what they need. So I just encourage the administration to look at accelerating and trying to fix the problem sooner rather than later.
Any additional comments or questions?
Yeah, I just have I know the presentation touched briefly on staffing, but I have a specific question about staff with an increase in the number of students taking special area classes and especially world languages. Will that not demand additional staff in those areas, or do we have that already in place to support that?
Yeah, the principals and their scheduling teams did mock-ups, and it actually won't. It'll actually, the way for example, you mentioned world languages, the way that it's structured now, it actually opens up more opportunities. And even with CTE courses, we're kind of looking and talking about those, beyond the schedule, but just ways to get more kids access, because we know that access in middle school is what prepares them, right, for making decisions in high school. So that was kind of one of our big priorities. So they looked at the staffing, and we are okay with staffing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on, next up, we have part 3 of 4 of the district's Learning Leap Plan. And we have quite a few speakers. I'm not quite sure who's up first.
Give me 1 second to switch slides and people.
Okay.
Okay, and can I just get a confirmation? Is Michelle Kutch in the auditorium? Because I don't see her.
Yes.
I am.
Perfect. Okay.
Thanks for checking.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening, President Scrobot, Vice President Pigeon, board members, Mr. Holer, and audience members. Thank you for the opportunity again to provide an update for our Learning Leap programming. And tonight's presentation will focus on what we have planned for this summer. Go to the next slide. As a reminder, our Learning Leap programming is focused on accelerating learning to better prepare our students for the next grade level. We are also committed to provide entitlement, extended school year services, and recovery services for eligible students. So this is not your mother's remediation plan. We have spent some time looking at research and evidence-based strategies that showed time and time again that it is critical to identify and deliver the prerequisite skills and standards that students should know to be able to accelerate their learning. This acceleration provides students an opportunity to experience on grade level and next grade level standards to better prepare them for the following school year. Social and emotional development is just as critical and will be embedded in each of our models. So just as a reminder, I know you've seen this slide before, but we will be using various criteria to identify students to participate in our summer programming. And this will include things like looking at attendance, seat time, level of engagement perhaps students had or did not have, and really looking at case-by-case situations. We'll also be looking at how well they met or did not meet the standards. So at the secondary level, looking at grades. At the elementary level, looking at specific competencies, identifying MAP scores that might be in a critical zone, and basically red flags in critical skills. We'll also be keeping an eye on the mental health wellness of our students by reviewing the data reports from platforms students will be using for their SEL-based lessons. And that includes Nearpod at the elementary level, Suite 360 at the secondary level, and of course, mental health needs based on teacher and staff observations. So moving around this particular graphic, we've circled summer programming. Previously, we have reviewed the overview of our learning leap plans and the spring learning support. Tonight, we'll be doing the deeper dive into our summer programming. That'll include Summer Academy, language development for our ELL learners, extended school year, entitlement programming, high school credit recovery, and general resources. And so with that, I am going to pass the mic over to Lavina Jones-Davis, our Director of Elementary Education. Lavina.
Thank you very, very much, and good evening as well. Wanted to share with you, if you could advance the slide, the logistical aspect of the summer programming, and it's definitely one that is inclusive. So just to share with you the dates, location, and hours. So this summer, we have identified 4 elementary locations that summer programming will take place, and that is Harlan, Hamby, Carcroft, and Claymont. For each of these locations, we will have a coordinator responsible for managing the daily responsibilities that will take place during the summer. Please note at the very beginning, we have identified Summer Academy that will begin on June 28th and run until July 29th. And Harlan, Hamby, and Carcroft summer programming will take place there. Please take note of the hours between 8 and 12 o'clock. For our ESL, which Michelle or Dr. Kutch just stated, please note that there is an extra day there, Monday. That time will be dedicated to language development for our students. Our ESY and recovery, and again, ESY extended school year, please note that that particular program, along with entitlement, will begin 1 week prior to the Summer Academy and ESL. And the location for the ESY and recovery, Claymont, Harlan, Hamby, times are the same there between 8 and 12. For our entitlement, between 8 and 2:30. For our ESY and entitlement, those students will be identified through our IEP team meetings. They will make the decisions on that. Also, these students, as far as the students eligible for ESY and some entitlement students, will also participate in the Summer Academy programming as well. Please advance. Let's take a minute and look at our structure for instruction delivery. So as Dr. Kutch said, we definitely will continue our Nearpod lessons. They have been very successful this year, and the district, we are committed to providing social and emotional lessons for our students. For the grade level ELA, for bookworms boosters, we will be looking at prerequisite skills and previewing next grade curriculum as well. We will be looking at our students' test scores from MAP to see exactly the areas of deficiency and be able to specifically address those areas with our students. At the same time, making sure that we differentiate the instruction for our students. One area, all of this is great, but it's really great, the enrichment part of it, to be able to provide 40 minutes of science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. All of those lessons will be prepared for our teachers. Students are really going to enjoy having a component over the summer dealing with science, and also being able to take virtual tours of field trips as well. I'm sure the students will definitely enjoy. With our math, Zern, our district is doing an exceptional job in elementary with Zern. The level of participation during the month of March, all of our schools have increased students' level of participation with ZERN. So this will continue not only with our district, but throughout the state of Delaware. ZERN lessons will take 45 minutes, and differentiation, we will continue to use the Dream Box as well, and that will be allocated of 20 minutes for our students. Next, and there will be 10 to 15 students per session. Now with Summer Academy, we are planning for our remote students as well as our in-person students. So here, elementary summer booths, for those students who will be working remote, we're looking at approximately 30 students per caseload. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they will have an opportunity to meet with their case manager. Case manager will go over any areas of concern, but also as opportunities for encouragement for the students who are participating. We will have lessons that will be loaded into Schoology for our students. And we will also have a platform of ebooks, which are high interest level for our students to participate. Our students will still have, our remote students will still have access to ZERN. And for our Spanish immersion, for those students who are participating in the Summer Academy, we plan to provide language enrichment for our students, as well as in math, as well as in writing also, for those students who are involved in Spanish immersion. Again, there will be a 30-minute check-in, and many lessons will be provided for the students throughout the week, including, as well as for our in-person kids, our remote students will also receive SEL lessons. Throughout both programs, we will be looking at the analytics report, providing parents with ongoing updates to let them know how their students are doing. Teachers will have updates and, of course, weekly incentives to encourage these students to continue to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones-Davis. I'm going to share with you the plans for the middle school summer programs. And first up, you'll see Summer School Academy, and you'll see several similarities to the elementary that was just presented. But for the Summer Academy, this is the in-person opportunity for students. It will be 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 8:45 to 12:45. And during this time, students will have opportunities in math, which will include teacher instruction, really looking at those critical standards that will help accelerate learning so that they're prepared for the upcoming grade level. Additionally, for English language arts, they'll be accessing Apex Learning as well as novels and associated writing prompts to ensure the writing continues to be addressed. And then the enrichment part for Middle School Summer Academy will really look at physical activity-based social emotional learning opportunities. So whether that's through basketball or some other physical activities, we're still thinking and working on ways that will engage students and give them those opportunities to be physical and work on social emotional learning simultaneously. Again, to address our remote learners, there will be a middle school summer boost, and in the same way as described in elementary, there will be case managers, and they will have approximately 25 to 30 students on their case. And during that time, they will have access to Apex Learning in both ELA and math, but twice a week, there will be live instruction from those case managers. They will continuously check in on the students as needed, and that progress monitoring will continue to take place. So we'll be looking at the analytic reports, again, providing updates to families, and then having weekly incentives to try to keep the students who are participating on track, because they will have independent work assigned outside of those live instructional times. And through this, we'll continue to look at addressing the needs of our unique learners. As mentioned earlier, ESY entitlement and ESL services will be provided to students, and the extended school year services will be embedded, again, for many of these students within the summer academy or the summer boost opportunities. However, as mentioned, those two aforementioned things are on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So Monday is a day that will be solely devoted to those IEP goal critical skills and the targeted supports. And then entitlement, again, students who are eligible for entitlement through the IEP team decisions, they'll have all of their goals addressed through those 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Some students will participate in summer academy, as mentioned earlier. And then again, there's inclusive opportunities for ESL students, but there will be a focus on English proficiency. And Mondays, again, just like with ESY, there will be targeted support for those students, and they will work within these summer academy or summer boost opportunities as well.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to talk to you about our high school summer programming. So we will continue to offer credit recovery as we have in the spring. We will use, again, the Apex Learning platform that you've heard about so far. For high school students, we will have an in-person and a remote support option. The in-person will be 8 to 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the remote support, because we know that lots of our high school students will have jobs, our remote support will be 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Monday and Wednesday. So last month, I shared with you the tenets of the WAVE program, and tonight I just wanted to give you an update on that program. The program did begin on March the 22nd, and they will be continuing through the summer. I'm happy to share with you that our first pod is full. However, there is still room for more students, so we are continuing to call and to contact parents and to invite their students to join the WAVE program. We are excited to offer our juniors and seniors a work-based learning experience. These students will assist classroom teachers with individual or small group support. These students will be paid $10.50 per hour, and they can apply on the BSD website. So much like you've heard for the elementary and for the middle, we also wanted to be able to give our students some SEL and some experiences that they could easily translate into what they may be doing after high school, or to just give them an encouragement to do the things that we need them to do to be successful. So we are excited about the opportunity to have educational aids. And again, it's available to our juniors and our seniors. So if you know some juniors and seniors in the Brandywine School District that might be interested, please point them toward our BSD website. So what are we offering for all students in the form of independent learning this summer? So for all of our students, we are providing the following that you see on this slide to encourage self-directed learning over the summer to prepare students for the new school year. So Sora is a reading program, and it's a reading app that allows students to experience K through 12 students to borrow ebooks and audiobooks from their school's digital collection. Typically, this comes with a cost, but this year DOE is purchasing the licensing for our students. It is available on smartphones, tablets, desktops. Students can read for pleasure and complete assigned readings anytime or anywhere. You've heard a mention about Dreambox. It is a math program. It personalizes math instruction from interventions all the way through enrichment. It strategically increases the learning velocity of our struggling students, advanced students, and our on-level students. Zern Math is an online student math platform with digital lessons. It includes fluency, concept development, and independent practice, and it also has built-in math help. It is directly connected to our Eureka and our illustrative math curricula. We are currently looking into providing additional support with paper-based workbooks that will also help to reduce screen time. We have dived into the research looking at what strategies and factors help accelerate learning. One of the things that keeps resurfacing is the importance of reasoning and providing opportunities for students to read. So we are investigating providing high interest books for all of our students to encourage and support summer reading. And finally, just as we did last year, we are providing families a list of educational resources that provide virtual and in-person opportunities. Again, we still want to focus on SEL as well as academics. So some of the virtual resources will include field trips and informal educational activities through the zoo and museum program. So that concludes our presentation on summer programming, and we will be back in June and July to share with you our school year 21 and 22 prioritization areas. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll entertain any questions you might have at this time.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
All
Can you tell me, it was one of the first slides, how will kids be selected for the summer learning program?
So it's a multi-pronged approach by which, looking at things like attendance. So if students hadn't attended for a particular period of time, also looking at MAP scores, assessment, grades, taking all of those things together and coming up with like I don't want to say like oversimplify and say a set score, but at least to prioritize and say if a student falls within this range, they would qualify for a particular program.
And do you anticipate having any issues with staffing?
Not for the summer learning. No, we've pretty much tried to kind of mold it around the staffing response that we have gotten. And then tweak some of our programming to make sure that we're able to still meet the needs of the students, but still with the teachers that have applied at that time and have accepted those positions, that we would be able to carry out what you saw here tonight.
Thank you. Sure.
What are the weekly incentives that you listed?
So thinking along the lines of current like PBS types incentives that schools have now, we would be looking at same kinds of things. But, obviously we have to be cognizant of we're not necessarily like handing things out. Maybe they would be virtual in nature, coupons and such, gift cards and the like, things that we would normally do in the school building.
I just wanted to add one thing. I think all of the sections kind of touched on the identifying students who would most benefit from these programs, engaging families, encouraging participation. And I think that's really the key to the success of this is having the engagement where it's needed, so that we can, recoup what's been lost over the past year plus. My one other question was related to, for the independent learning, are there any measures in place to track the engagement through the independent learning?
We certainly can with several of the platforms that were shared tonight. So in terms of, from a logistical standpoint of how many times something was accessed, say on
Who's using it? Are they using it at all?
Are they using it? Correct. Those kinds of things. Same thing with Dreambox, same thing with Zern, where we can run those reports.
And are there any measurements within those tools are they reviewing material and taking a test? How are they? Is there any assessment to the learning that's been done?
So in terms of the independent learner, where we would have absolutely no case manager, is that the one that you're referring to?
Any of them, just how can we measure the level of engagement to, at the end of this, look and see, was it worth it? Did we achieve what we needed to? Did kids learn meet additional benchmarks and so forth?
So we had already committed at the first cycle of MAP, the fall MAP administration, to take a look at that and use that data, look at the students who participated, and make that comparison to see, was it worth it? Did it work? Where would we need to see some tweaks, or, hey, this was really successful. Let's celebrate this or continue to operate in this way.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Michelle, can you go back just real quick to the slide that had the schedule?
Which grade level or which?
Elementary.
Okay, Lavina.
And the locations. I just wanted to see them again, because I don't have it on we don't have the presentation. Hopefully we'll get that.
Absolutely.
I noticed that, I just wanted to see which schools were going to be participating. Sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Now we will hear from our superintendent with his monthly report. Mr. Holler.
Thank you. Good evening, board, audience, staff, community members listening at home. It's my pleasure to again share news from multiple schools and program areas, as well as an update on hybrid and remote learning. We have a lot to report this month, so it will be a rather lengthy report. First, I am pleased and proud to announce that the Brandywine School District has been named one of the best communities for music education for the third consecutive year. As I'm sure you all know, teaching in a pandemic is no easy task. And teaching the performing arts is especially challenging when you don't have students in front of you on a regular basis. Nonetheless, our amazing music teachers have found ways to keep students engaged and foster a love of music as an essential component of a BSD education. Congratulations to our teachers and our students and supervisor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald for this prestigious recognition. While our amazing students and staff are truly deserving of this recognition, this award is actually shared with all the residents of the Brandywine School District, who have for years placed an emphasis on the arts in their support of programming and its expansion through numerous referendums. So this evening, we celebrate an amazing hat trick, receiving this prestigious award 3 consecutive years, thanks to the collective efforts of 3 core groups: our students, our staff, and our amazing community. Congratulations and thank you. We have an Olympian in our student body, a physics Olympian, that is. Jonathan Pay of Brandywine High School has been invited to take the 2021 USA PHO exam to represent the United States in the International Physics Olympiad competition, one of only 3 students from Delaware and 300 from the whole country. From that group, 20 will be selected for the U.S. physics team. Jonathan took the first part of the exam earlier today, and he'll finish the second half on Wednesday. He and the other competitors are being asked to solve challenging theoretical and experimental physics problems such as this. I'll give you a minute to read through the question, and board members, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand with the correct answer. And letter A, you can signal by using 1 finger, B 2, C 3, and so on. So you have 20 seconds. Ready? Go.
I think we're going to need longer than 20 seconds.
Okay, let's see those hands. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Oh, we've got one brave board member.
F, all the above.
I see a couple Bs. The correct answer is, audience? Thank you. The answer is C. C. Now that the warm-up problem is over, here's the real test. Give you a second to read through it. You can feel free to keep working, and I'll provide the correct answer at the end of my report. You'll see another name pop up there with Jonathan Pay, and that's his study partner. Anand John, another 10th grader here at Brandywine High School. Anand missed the score by 1 point. Otherwise, we would have had 2 physics Olympians in this district. It is unbelievable that these 2 students are 10th graders. And in talking to the physics teacher here at Brandywine High School, Dr. Judd Wagner, who's also our Teacher of the Year, ironically, he spoke to both of these young men's desire to learn, that they truly work hard at physics. It's a passion, but they are hard workers. Having taken physics, not quite like this myself, it's not an easy subject. And you can see the level of physics instruction and learning and application that these 2 young men are making in the 10th grade. Absolutely amazing. Congratulations to both Jonathan and Anand, and obviously to Dr. Wagner, Brandywine High School, and again, the entire Brandywine School District. Unbelievable. Tally Middle School also received national recognition this month when it became the first middle school in the country. I'll read that again. When it became the first middle school in the country to be approved for a National Junior Computer Science Honor Society. Teacher Renee Mercer worked collaboratively with current and former students to develop the goals, activities, and recruitment efforts outlined in the school's successful application. Congratulations and great job by all. William Garino, a 2nd grader at Lombardi Elementary School, will represent Delaware in the semifinals of the Moon Pod Essay Contest. The contest asks students to imagine leading a week-long expedition at the moon's South Pole and to tell NASA all about it. They were expected to include information about their crew, technology, and how the technology would be left behind for future astronauts. Approximately 14,000 essays were submitted from students in grades K to 12 across the country. Here's William's winning essay. On my lunar South Pole expedition, I would take 4 people because the spaceship can only fit 4. First is the pilot. Second is the bioengineer to study the moon and to figure out a way to make oxygen and purify frozen water. The astrophysicist, because they have knowledge about the moon and space. Fourth is a geologist to study under the moon's surface. They should be calm and even-tempered. I would leave behind the solar-powered batteries because there are 200 days of sun. Whoever comes next will have an unlimited supply of power. What a great job. Congratulations to William. Three students at Mount Pleasant High School's radio pathway swept the Prepared Radio Report category of the 2021 Delaware Press Association High School Communications Awards. Even more impressive, one student, junior Sage Duarte, not only came in first place, but also second and third. All 3 honorable mention awards went to seniors Liam Gouts and Kevin Young. Sage's first place piece on volunteering now heads to the national competition, where she will try to defend her title. That's right, defend her title. Sage is the reigning national champion in this category. Congratulations to all 3 students for their double sweep. Some big news coming out of PS DuPont. Math League and Math Count competitions were virtual this year, but that didn't stop PS DuPont middle school students from excelling. Congratulations to the 7th grade team for making it to the finals of Math League and the 8th grade team for reaching the semifinals. 7 PS students were invited to compete at the state Math Counts competition. 6 of them finished in the top 10. Congratulations to the following students for their outstanding work. Grace Wang took 3rd place in Math Counts. Bhavin Yarlagada took 4th place in Math Counts. Rajat Baskran took 5th place. Ellie Johnson, 7th place. Catherine Wang, 9th place. And Danielle Chi took 10th place. 2 of the students, Grace and Bhavin, will now compete at the National Math Counts events. Only 4 students will represent Delaware at the national event, and 2 of them are from PS DuPont. So congratulations to those students, and also congratulations to the math teachers at PS DuPont, namely Jamie and Sabrina Fitzhugh, for their continued outstanding success and dedication to young mathletes. You just heard Sabrina participate in the middle school scheduling study. So again, thank you to Jamie and Sabrina for everything that you do for our kids. You have a long running track record of similar successes. While congratulating staff members, I'd be remiss if we did not send kudos to our very own Dr. Yolanda McKinney. Yolanda is our Director of Student Services, and in addition to this challenging and busy position, she just completed her doctorate in educational leadership from Wilmington University. We're so proud of all of her accomplishments and what she contributes to the Brandywine School District on a daily basis. Congratulations, Dr. McKinney. BSD schools are observing World Autism Month throughout the month of April in various ways: announcements, events, essays, art projects, and more. This week, our students and staff will wear blue on several days in support of members of our community with autism. Lancashire staff lit it up blue in support of autism awareness and acceptance a little earlier this month. It's always gratifying when alumni want to return to their school or district as employees. In fact, we have several alumni on our staff in a variety of positions. Tonight, I'd like to highlight 3 new hires and tell you their stories. You see pictured Ian Picciarello, who graduated from Mount Pleasant High School in 2017, then graduated from the Service Source Framework for Success program and the Delaware Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Pre-Employment Transition Services program. He received a Certificate of Achievement as a food handler from ServeSafe and completed a culinary arts internship at the hospitality school. All of this led Ian to his dream job in food service at Concord High School. He couldn't be happier in this role, and it shows in his positive, upbeat attitude at work. Little birdie told me that Ian has a birthday coming up at the end of this month. So in addition to congratulations and welcome to the district, I'd like to wish Ian a happy early birthday. Shane Rosh graduated from Brandywine High School in 2017 and our site program in 2020. While at site, Shane completed internships with the 76ers Fieldhouse, Doubletree Hotel, St. Francis Hospital, Marshall's, Compassionate Care, Goodwill, and El Diablo. He is the newest hire at Hamby Bush as a substitute custodian. After just a few weeks on the job, Shane is already working independently and taking the initiative to do whatever needs to be done to keep his building clean, appealing, and safe. And finally, Kristen Campbell, a 2019 graduate of Mount Pleasant High School and also graduated from Service Source Framework for Success program. At Mount Pleasant, Kristen was the boys basketball team manager and statistician for 4 years and was always very visible and dedicated to his teammates and classmates. Most recently, Kristen was employed by Goodwill Industries at the Leonard L. Williams Justice Center, AKA the courthouse, but he desired something different. In his application, Kristen wrote, "It would be an honor and a privilege to return to the school district as an employee, where I can give back to others with the same positive attitude and enthusiasm that was shared with me over the years I attended." Well, Kristen is now sharing that enthusiasm with his colleagues at Lancashire Elementary, where he was hired as a substitute custodian. All three of these new hires make me proud to be BSD. Brandywine School District was honored to host 2 vaccination events for educators right here at Brandywine High School over the course of the past few weeks, in conjunction with the Department of Education and Acme Albertsons pharmacists. BSD staff stepped up to volunteer both inside and out to maintain a smooth process for the educators who came from across the state to receive their first or second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. In total, we were able to facilitate vaccines for 1,200 people on March 13th and 940 people on April 7th. It was truly a team effort and a reminder that we are indeed in this together. With that in mind, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at a little bit of the vaccination data for the state of Delaware, especially as we continue to set our sights into what next year will look like here in BSD. So some positive news as we look at the vaccination rate that Delaware has accomplished. If you remember, several months ago, Delaware got off to a slow start. We were towards the back end of the 50 states, but we have quickly made up ground, being 18th out of 50 states in terms of the number of residents who have received at least 1 dose. Fully vaccinated, we are at about 23.5% and 30th out of 50 states. What does it look like in terms of county? Again, I was amazed to see it, the percent of 65 and older, as high as 65%, which is wonderful. And I put this slide in to remind parents who have sons and daughters who are 16 or older. They are now eligible to be vaccinated through the state of Delaware. So we highly encourage you to take advantage of that. Schedule an appointment for a vaccination today. And then again, in terms of promising data, there was a forecast that changes weekly based on the number of people who are actually being vaccinated. And this data was as recent as today. They estimate that 50% of our total US population will be vaccinated by the 3rd of June. and that 85% will be vaccinated by August 9th. And I kind of bring that to the attention of the board members and parents and families because of just how quickly that has changed. When I reported this data originally to the board on March 26th, that forecast was for 85% of the population being vaccinated was January 1st of 2022. And in a few short weeks, it has moved all the way up to August 9th. And again, I bring that to the attention of the board and to the parents tonight. It's very encouraging to see that high percentage by August 9th in terms of us opening a traditional school year next year, welcoming our students back as normal. And again, that is the hope, and that is what we are planning for. With that being said, I do want to be sure to bring this to your attention because we still have to use our common sense, be vigilant, know what's happening around us. Delaware is currently, and I can't see the number behind the screen there, sixth in the nation, and that data is as of today. And that's for the 14-day average of new cases per 100,000 people. And to give you an idea of what those numbers have done since March 23rd, just in the last month, we see that creep here in Delaware. And we have kind of bounced back and forth between being 5th, 6th, and 7th in the nation. Definitely no time to let our guard down. I know there's talk of sports and loosening restrictions around sports. And again, in just looking at these numbers, I think it's still time for us to be cautious, to work with our children, our families, our community, to continue the wearing of masks and following those protocols until we see our numbers go down significantly. And currently we are still on the rise, and we need to set the tone with our families, with our communities, and with our children. And I ask for your cooperation in doing so, especially still monitoring your children on a daily basis before they get on the bus or in your car to come to school. And if there's any symptom of COVID, we ask that you keep your child home to protect him or her, as well as the other students in school and our staff members in school. We are still monitoring the data that we get on a daily basis from cases inside our schools. And I can again say this month that we do not see schools in our data being the source of transmission. Are there cases in our schools? Absolutely. And we will continue to work through those. And several months ago, I told parents that we are jumping to provide supervision when staff members are out for a reason. We'll continue to do that. And I'll put that little caveat in that depending on what happens with numbers and staff members needing to be isolated or quarantined, there could come a time when we have to have a class or two work remotely from home instead of coming in simply because we don't have the manpower to provide the supervision. We haven't had to do that yet, but I just want to be on the record to be as truthful and open as possible and ask parents to be understanding if and when that should occur. So here it is. It's that question that you've been working on as I've read through my report. And again, we'll let you see. You won't have to hold up your hands, but if you said the correct answer was E, and I see a lot of people nodding out in the audience, I don't believe you for a minute. Nope. Unbelievable when you read the depth of that question. And just the entire report tonight was filled with one success and accomplishment of our students and staff after another. we've often wondered, yeah, this pandemic has been a life lesson. It's been challenging. And we said it would be a test of resiliency, and the accomplishments we see tonight are proof positive of just how resilient our kids, our staff, and our community are in this crisis. And there were things that I had to cut out tonight because my report was getting too lengthy. But I'll swing back in 2 weeks when we have our next board meeting on May 3rd, and I'll be sure to present some more amazing feats of our incredible students. Proud to be BSD, and that is my report for tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you, Superintendent Holler. And for the record, I had answered D, but I forgot to carry the 1. So next up, we have public comment. Just a friendly reminder that speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. We do our best to be fair and consistent, so thank you for understanding. And if you are making a comment via Zoom, your Zoom ID must match your comment submission. And with that, first up, we have Tanya Hetler. Nope.
Okay. I'm too tall for this stand. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. My name is Dr. Tanya Hetler, and I'm running for the Brandywine School Board for the District F seat. My husband and I have lived in the Brandywine School District for 25 years, and both of our kids are in Brandywine schools. We initially moved to Delaware for me to go to graduate school at the University of Delaware to get my master's and PhD in psychology. I gained teaching experience while I was in graduate school and afterward as an adjunct professor. My concerns about the district's COVID-19 response are what led me to the conclusion that I personally needed to do something to help with the situation. Like many other families in Delaware, our kids have become more discouraged and less motivated during the course of this year. We recently decided to send our daughter back to school 4 days a week, and that has helped her considerably. However, hybrid learning is still not ideal because the teachers are forced to teach both to kids at home on their computers as well as the kids in the classroom. I've spoken to several teachers who have expressed their frustration with this situation. And it is not good for the kids at home either, because now the teachers have to wear a mask when they teach, which makes them considerably harder to understand. I hope that Superintendent Holler is correct and that we will be able to go back to school with a regular schedule in the fall. But given the fear that I still see among so many families, I'm concerned that might not happen. I would like to propose a suggestion that has worked out well in a nearby district. In this district, they have one group of teachers who teach the kids who are in person in the classroom and a separate group of teachers teaching the kids online. I think this would be the ideal situation for our district for the fall. We could have teachers who feel comfortable being in the classroom teach the kids who are in the school, while those teachers who are anxious about the spread of COVID teaching the kids online. As you are likely aware, there's been a huge increase in the suicides, suicide attempts, and mental health concerns over the past year. One of the principals in our district told me that they have completely lost contact with 15% of their students. And actually that was back in January, so I imagine it might be higher now. Additionally, the negative effects of the remote learning situation disproportionately affect people of color and low-income families. I have other concerns that I would address if I were elected to the school board. One of these is the use of the Smarter Balance testing. This testing consumes extensive teaching time and replaces it with test taking and forces teachers to teach to the test. Smarter Balance testing claims to predict success in college, but in actuality, it does not do as well as the simple GPA. If you would like to learn anything more about me and my goals for the school district, you can do so at tanyathedoc.com/school-board, or you can email me at drtanya4bsd@gmail.com. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hetler. Next up, we have Kim Stock. And Ms. Harris, if you could set the clock for 3 minutes and 30 seconds as well for Ms. Stock.
Oh, I'll get my mask on.
You're
Okay.
good. Just
Tanya, you're too tall and I'm too short. That's just how it is. I can't really explain it. I've been short all my life. What can I tell you? Before I start, Superintendent Holler, thank you so much for your report. I really enjoyed that. Good evening, Superintendent Holler, school board members, BSD students and families, and all of my colleagues listening at home. My name is Kim Stock, and you can vote for me on May 11th for the Brandywine School Board. Not only have I been endorsed by the Brandywine Education Association, I also have several BSD state senators and representatives, including members and leaders of the Education Committee, and those who have previously served on our school board who are endorsing me. As you may know, my husband Greg and I have been BSD parents since 2006, and I am both a high school teacher for Red Clay, and I am the 2021 Delaware Teacher of the Year. I have also served the BSD community in my role as an education manager for the Claymont Community Center. It is actually at Claymont that I taught and met many of our Muslim families in the district. I want to thank them for teaching this Christian woman about your religion and culture. I am so grateful for your support of my candidacy, and I also want to wish you a happy Ramadan. As I have walked around neighborhoods delivering some literature, I want to thank my district neighbors for taking the time to talk to me. I can tell you also love being part of this community. If you go to my website, kimstockteacher.com, you will learn why I have devoted my life to education and why I'm so passionate about teaching and enriching the lives of our students. In addition, you will see my 6 ideas for BSD, but the reality is I'm already working on these ideas in my role as a teacher and mom. I already work to provide equitable opportunities and meaningful learning for all of our students, regardless of their neighborhood, race, gender, or LGBTQ identities, religion, or language is spoken. Every day, I'm improving how culturally responsive my classroom, school, and district are. I already advocate and elevate educators of our profession, and I am working to increase our voice for more teacher leaders in our schools and districts. And finally, as a K-12 teacher right now, I am part of the solution of how families, students, and our community get through this pandemic stronger and together. Solutions do not include scapegoating. I am already part of the solution for BSD, and you are the other part if you come out to vote for me. Remember to vote for Kimberly Stock on May 11th. Together, we can make a great district even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stock. Ms. Harris, do we have anybody on Zoom commenting? Okay, and I did not open up for any comments after the superintendent's report for the rest of the board. If anybody had any comments regarding superintendent's comments. Okay, hearing no one. I'm sorry, was that Ms. Harris?
No Zoom comments for this session.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a comment about the superintendent's report. Mr. Holler, you mentioned the next school year and hopefully that we can be back to a traditional school year next year. I would really like to I'd really like to impress upon the administration that we really, I think our elementary kids have lost quite a bit of time with the school year this year as far as like their schedule time. And I know dismissal is about an hour earlier this year and arrival time is a little bit later. So I hope that we're going to readjust the schedule as well when we go back to a more traditional school year.
Thank you, Ms. Pigeon. That is correct. If we go back to a traditional school year, the school times that we had in place last year would be in effect. In order to provide secondary with some opportunity to come in for hybrid, we had to shorten the elementary day, and it also impacted transportation as well as coverage for classes as teachers were out. So there were several reasons why we did that. In my report, I mentioned that we haven't had to cancel a class yet because of, well, I take that back. We might have had to cancel one or two. Now that I think of it, I apologize for that. But the number has been very, very few. Whereas in some other districts, it's a more common process. So absolutely, we're hoping to get back to our normal schedule to have those related art classes in the elementary course of the day, which would keep those students in as they normally would have been from 8:30 to about 3:30.
And one other question with the Learning Leap. Can you tell me, are kids going to be receiving meals when they participate in summer programming? And are we going to continue with the meal programs that we are currently doing through the summer?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. If the students come to school, they'll probably get some kind of breakfast snack item when they first come in. There are some students who leave by noon. We'll try to send a lunch home with them. For those that stay until 2:30, they will definitely have a lunch period. But our food service department has done just a phenomenal job at continuing to provide food and support to children in the community with our bus stops, and we will continue that program.
I agree. It's been exceptional.
Should have brought some pictures. I'll include them in my May report of, I was at Claymont Elementary the other day, and the food service workers were packing 5-day boxes for students. The impact, one of those side impacts of the COVID pandemic that not all of us see. And for us to be able to provide that level of support to our community is wonderful.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. That'll carry us on to monthly board member liaison reports, starting with Delaware School Boards Association Executive Board. Mr. Ackerman.
The School Board Association Executive Board has not met since our last meeting. We do have a meeting coming up in early May.
Great, thank you. Delaware School Boards Association Legislative Committee, Ms. Gordon.
The Legislative Committee did not meet either, partially because the National School Board Association Conference was this month. We will be meeting, though, on April 28th. Meanwhile, I will be sending copies of bills of education out to the board via board docs. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, please let me know before that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. District Finance Committee held its monthly meeting on Wednesday, April 14th. We reviewed the monthly financial report and the financial position report, both of which will be presented shortly by Dr. Hale, and our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, May 12th. Maintenance Advisory Committee, Mr. Heller.
There wasn't a meeting in the month of April due to spring break, but Mr. Reed did send some information over. Over the break, the district took advantage of the buildings being open for work with no students in them. At Claymont Elementary, specifically, the auditorium was carpeted and the AV equipment installation was completed. New auditorium seating was installed the week prior. There was also a plumbing contractor on site that redirected roof drains. A steel contractor installed the new railings in the auditorium and added supplemental structural steel and sheetrock, along with the warranty work from the painter and all the punch list work from the update to that building. There was also extensive cleaning and field work at all of the other schools. And our next meeting will be at Claremont Elementary, still determining the date in May.
Great, thank you. Parent Council for Students with Disabilities, Ms. Pigeon.
The Parent Council hasn't met since our previous meeting.
Okay, Parents and Citizen Advisory Committee, Reverend Perry.
The full body of the Parents and Citizens Advisory Council has not met since our last meeting. However, the subcommittee discussions have commenced around the PCAC's Meet the Candidate virtual forum scheduled for Tuesday, May the 4th, 6 to 7 p.m. The event will be held again virtually, with candidates being provided an opportunity to make timed opening statements followed by a structured question and answer session. Board members and members of the PCAC will be provided the opportunity to submit questions anonymously ahead of the forum, and public questions will be submitted day of. I think it's important to state that it has been the district policy to remain nonpartisan. So the subcommittee has been in discussion with community organizations such as First State Educate, the NAACP, the Interdenominational Ministers Action Council, Friends of Christina, and DETV to promote and moderate the forum. As always, it is our attempt to engage our parents and citizens and our community members. A list of upcoming forums being held within the next 2 weeks are as follows. There is one being sponsored by the First State Educate and the Delaware PTA. On April the 27th, Brandywine School District will be held from 6 to 7 p.m., Colonial School District from 7 to 8 p.m. And then again on April the 29th with Red Clay School District from 6 to 7 p.m. and Christina School District from 7 to 8 p.m. Again, the Brandywine's PCAC committee will host our forum on May the 4th from 6 to 7 p.m. And then Friends of Christina will host their forum following hours from 7 to 8 p.m. Just a few friendly reminders. The election will be held on May the 11th. You do not, and I repeat, you do not have to be a registered voter for this election. However, you do have to be at least 18 years of age or older, be a U.S. citizen, be a resident and citizen of the state of Delaware, reside within the school district for which the election is being conducted. Final note, during the pandemic, anyone can vote by absentee ballot. To request an absentee ballot, you may contact the Newcastle County Department of Elections at 302-577-3464. Again, that's 302-577-3464, or visit ivote.de.gov/voter-view. Again, that's ivote.de as in Delaware.gov/voter-view. If you plan to vote via absentee ballot, you must request an absentee ballot no later than May 7th. For additional information, please visit the Department of Elections website. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Reverend Perry. Health Advisory Committee, Dr. Zarek.
The Health Advisory Committee has not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, May 19th.
Thank you. 91.7 WMPH has not had a meeting, but Superintendent Holler already identified the winners of the Delaware Press Association's High School Communications Award. So I would just encourage everyone to check on over at WMPH.net and listen to their podcasts. There's a little link that you can click on and hear the winning submissions. And next time you're in your car, just tune into 91.7 and take a listen. Any additional board member reports?
I just would like to make an announcement about the upcoming class of 2021 graduation parade. So if any board members are interested in helping in parking control, cheering on our graduates. It'll be on Saturday, June 5th. And each school is at a different time throughout the day. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you, Ms. Pigeon. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the monthly personnel report as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve student matters as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. We do not have any old business. New business. At this time, I welcome Assistant Superintendent Dr. Lisa Lawson to present the draft of the 2021-2022 Student Code of Conduct. Just a reminder to the board, this is not an action item tonight, just a draft presentation. Dr. Lawson?
Thank you and good evening, President Scrobat, Vice President Pigeon, Superintendent Holer, and members of the Board of Education. On behalf of the 2021 Code of Conduct Committee, I am here to present to the board as we do annually. As you know, our Code of Conduct is aligned with Goal 3 of our District Success Plan. It is our job to purposely design safe, healthy, learning environments for our students and families. Our guiding principles with regard to the Code of Conduct is to create a safe, nurturing learning environment, ensure that we have equitable treatment of all students, and provide proactive supports and interventions to teach appropriate behaviors. And we've talked over board meetings over the last several years around multi-tiered systems of support, which is now part of Title 14 and state regulations for all children, that we are to ensure that we are supporting students and implementing interventions to try to help them in a numerous ways, both academically and socially and emotionally. So we are here to just highlight proposed changes for this year. As you know, there was a pretty significant overhaul of the front section of the code last year in terms of the narrative section. So this year we only bring 3 very minor changes. We will be sending you a document for you to review these changes and compare it with the old one over the next month prior to voting on this new Code of Conduct in May. The first has to do with attendance and ensuring that our students are receiving as much credit as possible with regard to online and remote. So we had to make some changes around excused absences as an example. If your Wi-Fi connectivity is having difficulty or you're having difficulty with your hotspot or internet connectivity at your home, that has to be considered an excused absence. This is a new time and we are exploring obviously new excused absences and unexcused absences. Also, we had really taken a stab at what online and remote learning would have looked like around this time last year. With our code, we've made some adjustments and some changes to that. Just as an example, we don't require students to have their screens on at all time, their video on at all times for various reasons, but again, trying to be very supportive of students. So we adjusted that section of the code, and we would have you pay particular attention to that as you review it. We made sure to exempt pre-K. We have done this for many years, but we noticed as a committee that it wasn't actually called out in the code. Our 3 and 4-year-olds are being taught all kinds of things with regard to how to do school, and we don't believe it is age or developmentally appropriate for them to be included in this code of conduct. So we exempted them from it. And then just some minor changes with Title IX. We've undergone some pretty massive training. 2 of our individuals on our district leadership team, Dr. Yolanda McKitty and our Human Resources Director, Delethea McIntyre, are our coordinators for Title IX. And then Ms. Scott and I have additional training to go to around the decision maker role. So we were sure to outline that information. The bulk of the work this year was taking a hard look at the section around the violations. And so just to break this up into 4 categories that I will be talking about each one. So to begin, looking at the redesigning the code in terms of language use from a teaching and learning lens. So we've removed words like reprimand, and we also recognize that it's not just the teacher that's involved in the code of conduct. It's really all staff, because we all wrap our arms around students and support the whole child. So you'll see language changes like staff correction or staff explanation and modeling. Remember, we're talking about 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old children. So to some extent, they may need that explanation. They may need that modeling, especially around some of the lower level, the level 1 and level 2 infractions. And at the secondary level, you'll begin to see language around restorative conferences, restorative practices. As you know, we've undergone a pretty significant amount of training, and we continue to do so. All of our secondary schools will be trained by the end of this year. Then when you look from an equity and support lens, and again, just giving 4 examples of how we are shifting towards equity and supporting students. So in the current code for academic cheating, for first offenses, mind you, this is the first time we have things at the elementary level, such as detentions and grade penalties. At the secondary level for a first offense, we have suspensions of 1 and 2 days and grade penalties. And so we've moved to this proposal for the new code to have a first offense around explanation and a resubmission of assignment, the opportunity to resubmit the assignment in a different form or manner. And then on subsequent offenses, if it continues to happen, you will then see an SEL lesson assigned. You know, perhaps the student doesn't understand the depth of the magnitude of actually cheating or plagiarism. And then you will see things return, like potentially a grade penalty for subsequent offenses. So trying to shift to a more supportive, explanatory piece prior to the consequence and the punishment. The second example is around careless, reckless behavior, which in the definition indicates unintentional behavior, things that can sometimes be an accident. So in the current code, you see things that are required like detention, suspension, and cancellation of privileges. So the proposed change would be for a first offense that we would have, again, a conference, a staff-student conference, an explanation, perhaps restitution, especially if it was unintentional, and then providing options. And then the detention and suspension piece would become an option, and the requirement around subsequent for referral for support services, whether we're talking about counseling or some kind of support services for the behavior. The third example is around dress code. So in our current code, you find that we are required to provide detentions and cancellation of privileges. In the proposed version, we are looking at having alternatives options via the school nurse. Our school nurses often have options for clothing that would meet dress code requirements. And we would want to support students, especially on first offenses, in terms of doing that. Parent conferences and staff offers of support and assistance. Again, just trying to remove some barriers for some students who need to be in school. They need to have access to the education. And then the last example was unexcused tardiness. In our current code, you see requirements such as detention, cancellation of privileges, and suspensions at the secondary level. And our proposal in the new code is MTSS strategies for attendance. We've created a whole tier 2 and tier 3 support strategies for our staff and for our teachers in terms of assisting students with tardiness. And it is going to need to be in collaboration with parents, because obviously our younger kids are either on the bus or they're in the car rider line. So how can we work together to support the family? Social workers, home visits, problem solving, team meetings and strategies rather than exclusions and suspensions. In terms of first offenses, again, we try to take a much more supportive teaching approach. So you'll see SEL lesson assignments where we can go on Nearpod and Suite 360, and we can choose lessons that are associated exactly with the violation that occurred and try to take that teaching and modeling and corrective approach to give the student a chance for restitution and those kinds of things, restoration, partnering with parents and guardians, asking, do they need support? Do they need help? In what ways can we help them? And then the subsequent offenses is where you see the more significant things, where you do start with support. You have referrals to MTSS problem solving teams. You have positive behavior support plan requirements. But then if exclusion or suspension, if separation needs to happen, that it can be optional for several violations depending on the severity of the situation. And the committee is recommending that we remove suspension as an option for 5 and 6-year-old children. Before I get into future considerations, I just want to read this excerpt with regard to the data that we looked at around code of conduct and some of this work. According to Skiba, who is a researcher in 2000, 95% of out-of-school suspensions are for nonviolent infractions, such as chronic tardiness or defiance. Every child and adult has a right to feel safe and secure in school, but instituting banishments for minor infractions doesn't contribute to the well-being of anyone involved, prevents learning from occurring, and compromises the school climate. The negative effects of suspension and expulsion are not limited to students who directly receive the punishment. In a large-scale study of exclusionary disciplinary practices, Perry and Morris in 2014 found that higher levels of exclusionary discipline within schools over time generate collateral damage, negatively affecting the academic achievement of non-suspended students in punitive contexts. In other words, when schools rely on exclusionary discipline policies, the achievement of all students is negatively affected. So in terms of future considerations and expectations, our committee is looking to do a bigger shift for elementary to restorative. As we mentioned, you will see restorative language in the secondary part of the violations, but elementary has not gone through that extensive training yet. It has not reached yet the staff level that is planned for the fall of 2021. So look for that. Discussing further suspensions during those early childhood years. There's a lot of research to support that early childhood extends to age 8, and we should be looking at alternatives as opposed to excluding students from school. So we're going to continue to look at that. And then other alternatives to suspension. I know there's some work at the state level with the School Climate Committee. Brian Moore leads that committee, and he indicated that there are some discussions around alternatives to suspension with that committee. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Code of Conduct Committee that worked together collaboratively. Dr. Yolanda McKinney and I led those meetings, and we have representatives from our Teachers Association at all 3 levels. And we met 4 or 5 times and plan to meet again after receiving feedback from all of you, as well as anyone else, our leaders, our deans, our assistant principals, and anyone else who wishes to provide feedback. Before I take questions, I think this is an appropriate way to end this presentation. In terms of our philosophy, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So at this time, I'll take any questions on behalf of the committee.
Any questions from the board?
I assume we'll get a full copy of
A
the
play-by-play, yes. I'll send you a Google Doc that has the changes, and you can use the current code and line it right up, and then a draft copy of the proposed changes, yes.
No other questions, I think. Thank you, Dr. Lawson.
You're very welcome.
That brings up our Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Jason Hale, to present the monthly financial report and financial position report.
Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. Thank you. Good evening. The information presented in the report this evening is from the District Finance Committee report ending March 31st, 2021. We reviewed the information in detail at the DFC meeting last week. The information on page 1 for revenue, the state revenue has not changed over the last several months. We will, over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, begin to receive the additional funding for the formula salaries and OECs, but there should not be much activity in there between now and that point. On the local fund side, we are at 99.3, 99.4%. So we reported in the meeting that all of the districts in Newcastle County have been seeing better than expected revenue generation this year on the tax side. So that's something that the county has also expressed. So we should easily be over 100% either by next month or the month of May. The federal funds have been fully received, and we are going through the process of ensuring that all of those applications and amendments have been performed. The information on page 2, the expenditure report, again, we continue to talk with the principals and review all of the purchase orders and transactions. We will be coming up on the point in the next like 3 or 4 weeks where we will begin to cut off expenditures for the remainder of the year so we can begin the closeout process for the year. But again, the principals have done a tremendous job with their budgets this year, going through this interesting time that we face with COVID. The operating expenditures for the other areas, everything is in good shape. We continue on a daily basis to review all of the transactions as they come in. We are currently 76.92% of the way through the year on our, if you look at the number of pay cycles. So on our Division 3 local salary line, we are at roughly 75.6%. So we are trending, as we've talked over the last several months, to be below our budget on our Division 3 local salary. And with that being such a large portion, it is something that will certainly have a positive impact on our carry forward balance. So moving forward with our operating expenditure report for prior year appropriations, again, this is just the information for those appropriations that are prior to fiscal year 2021. And then finally, our cash flow statement. As you can see, over the course of the last several months, we've begun to kind of tick up what we believe that June 30 carry forward balance to be. So currently, I'm anticipating that we would be at roughly 12.1%, I'm sorry, 12.1 million as a carry forward balance on June 30th. That number could increase slightly, and we'll have a better idea of that during next month's report. Are there any questions that I can answer for the board?
Well, I know Ms. Pidgeon and Superintendent Holler mentioned the food services program and the great work that they've done with the food delivery. Just to clarify for the public, that is still being funded federally through federal funds, not
Yes.
local dollars.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll vote on both items together, if that's all right.
Okay. Next is the financial position report. This is the quarterly report that's required to be submitted to the Department of Education. Oh, I'm sorry. That might be too. How's that? Okay, let's go. I can slide it over here. Oh, there we go. So this is the quarterly report that's required to be submitted to the Department of Education to show that we have sufficient funding to carry us through roughly October of next year, which would be when we would receive the bulk of our next year's tax payment. You can see here in total with all available funds that we're sitting at roughly 18.6 million, and certainly that's sufficient funding. So this report is required to be approved by the board and submitted to the department. It's been reviewed by the DFC and has been recommended for approval.
Hearing that, I will accept an motion to approve the monthly financial report and financial position report subject to audit.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Hale. We do have a second public comment section here. And I believe we do have one individual via Zoom. Ms. Harris? Ms. Harris, do we still have?
RJ Miles.
Miles, when the clock starts, time is yours.
Unmute. There we go. Good evening, everyone. As you said, RJ Miles from CCOBH. Thank you for a great program tonight. At last month's meeting, the board voted in support of an effort to work toward modifications of the proposed Brandywine Country Club deed restrictions that might be reported on tonight. We held one meeting of the smaller working group subcommittee on 3/22, and I'd say it was clear we have a lot of work to do. Thank you, Mr. Holler, for chatting with me earlier in the week regarding that meeting on the 22nd, as well as an interest in trying to schedule something for our next meeting. Tomorrow, I'll send out an email regarding dates and times for next week and see if we can't get something started. Mr. Capano has told us he would plan to schedule their Board of Adjustment meeting in May and their Planning Board meeting in June or July. For that public meeting scheduled to stay on track, we have a lot of work to do and the clock really is running. So we look forward to our next meeting. I guess I have a question. Is there a status update regarding our goals to report out progress to the work of the working group to the board, and what future board meeting do you envision that taking place? Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Miles. I mean, this forum is, public comments for a time for you to be heard, not necessarily an interaction, but certainly Superintendent Holler will respond to your email accordingly. And the board will provide updates for the public as they are warranted.
Thank you.
General information and meeting dates. Before we close, just a few dates to remember. Our regular scheduled board meeting. Next one is early, May 3rd. So just a couple weeks from now, followed by board meetings on June 21st and July 19th. And as mentioned earlier, we do have a school board election on May 11th. Any last comments from anyone on the board? Thank you, everyone, for your time and participation this evening. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. That concludes our April meeting. Thank you.